Factory Talk: Secrets of Effective Plant Leaders. Produced by
Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of Factory Talk. This is Jamie Flunchball, your host, and glad to be joined by Mike Fresina of Qorvo. Mike, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, Jamie, thanks. So Qorvo is a high-performance semiconductor manufacturer primarily servicing wireless communication markets, cellular, Wi-Fi, other high-performance semiconductor applications like that. I've been with the company for 22 years, started in engineering in the wafer fab. So the organization I work in now is a wafer fabrication factory that makes the individual semiconductor die that then go into our products. And I started with in engineering, and eventually you stick around long enough, I guess, by attrition. And I've been the factory manager for about 5 years now of this factory.
Well, attrition works where there's always more candidates for a job anyway, so
Yeah.
Well earned. And we've known each other for several years now, and I've gotten to visit the factory and see it from the inside. So for those that don't know, semiconductor fabrication plant is quite complex. A lot of moving pieces, complex components, complex machinery, complex skills. So as the leader of this organization, what are your most important touch points to really know what you need to know and where you need to intervene, et cetera?
Sure. I think that I look at that in two ways. One is tactically, day to day and week to week, and there's probably two main channels there. That is my direct reports, and just having communication with them. It's not just, we don't just talk once a week, right? I mean, it's being able to communicate with them daily or more frequently than that, to understand where the problems, challenges are of the day or of the week. And then also very important, as you said, with the complexity that we're dealing with, are the automated systems, and therefore the data and in the end, the reporting that we have. So we have a lot of very, I would say, key for that weekly, daily monitoring, key reporting that we can easily pull up nowadays on a web-based report that helps us highlight where we're having potential problems. And really, that's the thing I'm looking for day to day, is where might there be a problem that we need to get on, and not let it fester for too long, or to make sure our customers are satisfied, in a timely manner. So, we look for, those reports the key reports that I would monitor probably day to day, week to week are, cycle times, scraps, holds, the WIP reports that show me where there's material piling up that's not evenly spread through the line or whatever. Those are leading indicators of potentially bigger problems that we try to get in front of. Then quickly, the other end of that is more strategically, where that is then monthly or quarterly, more organized meetings we have, an engineering monthly, where we have a structured report out and people present their metrics, and we say good job, and then review the problems that they're having that they can't solve or that seem to be lingering or whatever. So there's a couple layers of that we look at monthly or quarterly. So I'd say more organized for the team at that level.
Oh, great. That's certainly more nuanced than one of my first bosses in manufacturing. I was manager on the floor, and it was the early days of factory data, and they just sat at their desk, looked for something to go red, and then called me on the radio to find out what's broken. So
a little more automation now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's no question there. So I know we both share a desire to see culture as a driver of performance. So what do you see your role in driving culture? How do you approach the culture of your organization?
Yeah, I think that I see that responsibility on me more than anybody else in the organization, for starters. I don't expect as much from my direct reports or anybody on their teams to have a vision, let alone actually try and push the culture in a certain direction. So for me, it's really what I do. It's not what I do. It's my behavior, right? It's the walking the talk, right? It's people are going to see what I focus on. They're going to see what is important to me by my actions, and I think that is the most important tool in my toolbox to affect the culture. For example, safety is our number one priority always, and so for me, my tool for making sure that my organization understands that's at the top of my agenda in every meeting that I run. First is safety. My staff meetings, our monthly review, whatever. So then also, for example, with lean, for me, it's important to be participating in problem solving, participating in reviewing continuous improvement projects, and not just for, hey, that's a great improvement, but also as a to help the organization develop and make sure we're putting in good corrective actions. We're finding good root causes to the problems that we're trying to solve. So, really, doing what I want the organization to do myself, I think, is leading by example is the biggest tool for pushing a culture in a certain direction, I think, on any of those types of topics.
That's great. And, combining those two together, your touch points along with the decisions and actions, I like to say that you can't be a role model if no one sees you do it. So
right.
Being visible, doing the right thing is a great way to drive that culture. So another thing that certainly affects behaviors and also sort of provides some touch points are the metrics. And, I think we've both seen your metrics have been modified over the past several years. But how do you use metrics in your factory to drive performance, problem solving, culture, and how do you think about shaping it? How do you go about deciding and designing the right metrics for your team?
Yeah, it's obviously a key aspect of managing a large organization and keeping everybody on the same page with the same goals, and that kind of leads into my answer, which is, first of all, top down. We start with that. What are the goals for the organization, and how does that trickle down into each group? And so we try to set goals or KPIs or important metrics at a top level, and then I expect each organization to take all of those, or the ones that they can affect or that are going to be impacted by their team, right? And to either adopt it as their goal or maybe drill deeper and say, okay, what do I have as a goal for my specific engineering team that will help the entire organization achieve this goal for yield or cycle time or cost or whatever it is. And so, kind of a top level view, that's how we trickle down goals. I think that specifically when it comes to setting goals, we really think about the behavior we want to drive or what we're trying to achieve. And the goal is going to be a number. Hopefully it's going to be very measurable, or it has to be. You got to know, that's the only way you got there, right? Or if you're going to achieve it. But it has to be very tangible, I think, to the audience that you're giving the goal to, right? The team that you're setting the goal for. They have to know what to do in order to affect that goal. They have to understand what inputs they have control over that might affect that output. And so it's making the goal very tangible for the team, and that's why as we trickle it down, it'll evolve. And I expect my managers to be able to connect the goals for their teams to the goals for the entire organization, to hopefully tie it all together and make the actions of the direct labor, if you will. They understand how their actions affect the top level goals for the organization because they have a little piece of that's been identified for them. And I think that's really key to keeping everybody involved and making it all connect. Great.
Yeah, that last word, I think, is one of the key words you used a couple of times is connect, right? It's people's connection to a broader context of what the organization needs to accomplish. other teams or other levels in the organization. And so, metrics do provide that opportunity to connect people to what matters and the context around their work.
It really does affect their behavior. It really does change. It's also as I said before about walking the walk. If we're focused on these metrics, people want to support that. If we set those goals, they want to help. And if you set goals that they can't connect to, it's just wasting an effort, if you will. Mm-hmm. Right? They really don't know what to do.
Yeah. So you talked about driving metrics as a top-down exercise about what the priorities are, and then cascading that through. How do you think about continuous improvement? This is one of those, there is no right answer, but everybody has an approach. Is it more bottoms up and you cultivate the frontline resources, or do you drive what continuous improvement looks like from the tops? How do you think about that? Those two bookends of that balance.
Right. I think it's a little bit of both. We kind of started tops down first with setting kind of the expectations for our lean journey and continuous improvement, and defining roughly what that we wanted it to mean to the organization, and then seeding some expertise. And I think Qorvo did that company wide, but I also, within my organization, that's kind of how we approached it, top down with the vision and some of the important skills that we needed to develop. So, for example, developing a few experts, or identifying, if we've already have them on the team, who are some of our experts in problem solving, in some of the specific tools that we want to use for problem solving, experts in other methodologies like waste walks or PDCA or whatever. So we want to have those skills readily available and identified, and continue to develop that and expand that. But the ultimate vision is that it's really a grounds up culture around continuous improvement, that everybody is participating in continuous improvement. And specifically for my organization, one of the biggest leaps we made in our journey, in our training, was when we developed and took training down to, when we took training to the direct labor, the frontline operators, and which they had been hearing about our lean journey, and they've been seeing some of the marketing, but honestly, I don't think they really knew what they were supposed to be doing yet, and what the expectations were on them. So it was, and really, to me, it was an untapped resource until we engaged them, until we brought them into the process. So we developed a training for our frontline workers, and it gave them a good overview of what we were expecting with continuous improvement, but then it also gave them a few of the specific tools that were, again, very specific to their roles. And it wasn't just a broad, lean tool training. It was a very specific, so that, with the limited time we have with them, limited resources we have to do that type of training across the entire organization, we could really focus them on how they can contribute. So that's a good example with the manufacturing team of how we really tried to focus on the grounds up development of the continuous improvement effort. And I think that's in the end where you have to go, where you have to be in order to make your organization a real learning organization. Mm-hmm. That is, otherwise you have a great untapped resource there. And again, we kind of tops down look for where we need the expertise, where we need to continue to develop a vision or resources, but really trying to set the expectation that everybody is going to participate in this, and then you have to develop the support around that also, because you can't just ask at the question, get a lot of answers, and then if you're not doing anything with it, it's going to die, right? So as you have to nurture that. So there's a lot of aspects to that, but that's the goal.
Awesome. Yeah, it's one of my favorite phrases around lean was every person every day, just that as the target, right? But as you said, it takes a lot to support that. You can't just flip a switch and tell everybody to go forward when you can't support that with your organization.
Right.
Use an interesting word, seeding. I think that seeds planting seeds implies, sprouting and growth, and sounds much more about an ask for people rather than a formal role. So how do you think about the seeds you've planted throughout the organization based on skill?
Well, to maybe I'll partly explain what Qorvo's done in that sense also, because it's, my organization has had a particular approach and needs for that. But I'll start with Qorvo in our lean journey has invested nicely in myself and others in some pretty involved training around the lean processes and methodologies. And that was a seeding process. We've gotten several dozen folks through this training, and they're deliberately selected to help us spread that expertise throughout the organization, throughout the entire company. And the idea there being is the expectation then is that the folks that have been to this training are going back to their organizations and being lean leaders in their organizations. And so that's not a company-wide, everybody's going to go through this training, so now you all know what to do, right? It's a little more, a little more bottoms up in a way, right? Where you put people with expertise out there to help you bring the organization to where you want them to go. So for my organization specifically, I think a good example of how we've seeded has been with problem solving, the tools we use around problem solving, and making sure for starters, we've got a few engineers who are specifically trained in this process, the 8-step process or an A3 process. And that the expectation to them is that you will help folks with their problems when problems show up, or if somebody needs, hey, I'm trying to do an A3, my little group here, but I've never done one before. Can you just walk me through how it works? We've advertised that we've got a few folks. We've marketed that. We set the expectation for those folks. We want you to help everyone learn how to do this. The bigger the problems that we're trying to solve, the more involved they are, then these, sometimes we call them problem-solving ninjas, they are the ones driving that group, right? Big group, big problem. They're the ones that are responsible for doing it because they have the expertise to, get us through the process that we want to go through properly and efficiently, expertise on the tools we're going to use along the way, hopefully the expertise to know, hey, this isn't going the way we want it to go. We need to try this instead, right? Mm-hmm. Or in order to make this work properly, we need this tool that we're not using yet. So let's grab it. And the goal of doing that is, again, not only to have the expertise there to help us be successful, but for them to share it and for the organization to learn more broadly as we go through it. It's on-the-job training for everyone in problem solving, but having the seeds there, having the people there that have that expertise allows that to grow within the organization. I'll even go back to my own participation in that as an example. These days, we've got enough people that are good at most of the problem solving steps that when I go in, I focus on preventative actions, true countermeasures, making sure that we're all happy with how we've solved this problem. We got good root cause, and we're not going to see that problem again, because I think the organization has done a good job of the rest of the process in terms of what I see and how we do that repeatedly. And so I want to focus on that to make sure that we continue to grow in that area. And so in a way, I'm seeding that, right? I'm going in, and that's my contribution. And when I sit in some of these problem reviews is trying to make sure that we're good at that last few steps of the 8-step process.
No, that's great. It certainly, shows the ownership, right? Is lean's not your job title. Lean is what you do, what you drive, right. What you own. So, yeah. So just following up on that a bit more, you talk about the setting the expectation that these folks that you've built some skill with will be able to help. How's that expectation been received? Welcome, frustrated, confused? I mean, how do they deal with that?
I think, first of all, sometimes you get folks who are already kind of doing it, and kind of are the leaders in, pulling a team together and tackling something, and you take advantage of that, of course, right? And if we're introducing a new tool that we want to use, well, those are the folks you want to train on it, because they're normally the evangelizers and the leaders anyway in that type of area. So I would say capture that energy, capture that existing expertise, rely on it, even to the point if you have existing teachers. So I think one of our lean leaders is not somebody who is steeped in lean expertise, but they were a kind of a trainer and a teacher for the organization already. So, hey, this is what we want the organization to focus on. So they're definitely willing to learn put new skills in their toolbox or new tools to share with the team, and teaching is what they want to do. So, I think partly you want to grab what's already there in terms of motivations and capabilities. There have been a couple folks who, went through one of our Qorvo specific lean classes, and so we said, okay, now you're one of the organization's lean leaders, and they kind of fade off the radar, if you will, a little bit, as far as being a leader in that, right? Maybe it wasn't meant for them, but if we're planting a dozen seeds and a couple of them don't sprout or whatever, right? Back to that analogy. Yeah. That's still pretty successful, I think, and you just, it's an ongoing process as far as even building that capability for the organization or the infrastructure to keep the org moving forward and growing.
Yeah, I think that, allowing that sort of informal leadership, the people that just it gravitates to and they bring energy to, versus just being a formal role, the energy they can bring out of their own desire could be triple what you lose by not having everybody
absolutely
fill that role. So
it's going to be more effective, more successful, and if anything, I may err up more on the side of I want volunteers. I want people that are passionate about it or interested in the task or the challenge at hand. And sometimes I rely on that too much, and you just got to get the job done. But I really believe in that too. Take advantage of that passion, and it'll be more successful and more pleasant probably for everyone, right?
Yeah. Well, you talked about you can put all the automation you want in a factory, but ultimately people solve problems, and so that passion is a huge component. So you had talked about problem solving a bit. So what tools and processes do you use and deploy to really drive your excellence in problem solving?
Yeah, we're focused on a couple of tools for starters right now. We use A3 and 8-step, which I don't know if it's universal or not, but we basically look at the A3 as a simplified version of the entire 8-step process. So that's kind of a single tool for me, and it just runs the spectrum. If you're solving a simple problem with two or three folks, and you kind of know what to do, but you need to walk through the process to make sure it's documented and that everybody understands the problem, the gap, and the current state, and then what we're going to do to fix it. The A3 in its simplest form is a great tool still for everybody to be talking off the same song or singing off the same song sheet, right? But then that, I believe, evolves as your problems get more complex, all the way up through a full rigorous 8-step problem solving, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the core of our problem solving toolbox. We do also use a method called 8D, which is more for when we have excursions where we have something that broke, especially when something, maybe a quality defect gets to a customer. We have customers that expect 8Ds from us when we have quality excursions. So we also use that, but it's related in many ways to the 8-step. And so it still allows us to rely on the core of an 8-step problem solving methodology. Mm-hmm. I think process-wise, for my team, one is that we have an expectation that it's a team exercise, that even if somebody's doing a simple continuous improvement A3, an engineer on their process, we really want them to, grab another engineer, grab the equipment guy that works with you, grab an operator that works on this process, and get it, have a few people go through it with you. It always enlightens us, when we have somebody share the problem with, right? And it makes us all better at the steps of the process. We come up with better solutions. So we really focus on trying to have a team effort when we do continuous improvement and problem solving. And then the other key part of our process is periodic reviews. And for example, for 8Ds, which again are focused around quality excursions, we have a monthly review where hopefully we only have one or two to review, but unfortunately sometimes we have more. We have a monthly review where we check in on the open 8Ds and also, again, very importantly, review the closed ones and make sure we've really got rigorous root cause and preventative actions in place. And that's a lot around not just the specific problem and making sure we have that preventative action in place, but and I open every meeting the same way. I said, you guys are going to feel beat up sometimes here, but this is about the organization learning how to be good at solving problems and how to be collaborative and constructive, and how do we get to really good root causes and get to really good preventative action. So this is a team effort. So I'm not beating you up, right? we're here to poke, and I want everybody to ask questions. And so I think that's a really important part of our process for the entire organization, to see what the expectation is and to get better at, solving the problems, getting good improvements in place.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, certainly, I think rigor on the back end of problem solving is often missed. Right? I see people put more process into kicking off problems than they do about finishing them and ensuring sort of thorough success.
Right.
And ultimately, we actually want to see the problem go away, not just put the file away. So,
I agree. Preventative action. I think the worst problems we have are the ones we had before.
Yep.
I have good preventative action.
Certainly the most frustrating. So kind of ending on a fun question, if you had to choose one tool or method from the grand toolbox of Lean to help drive improvement on your factory, what would it be and why?
Okay. So I'm gonna pick one that I barely even mentioned. So hopefully it makes sense. But it's waste removal, because when I look at the core of continuous improvement, I think it's waste removal. When I look at solving problems, you can characterize that as waste removal. A defect or a scrap problem is, we can't have that waste, right? We can't have that material being thrown out. So I think if I'm on my island alone with one Lean tool, it would be waste removal, because I think it really is a foundation for a lot of aspects about making the organization better. And to me, a perfect process, perfect organization, zero waste. Can't probably get much better than that.
Yep. No, that's great. I always say, when an organization doesn't know where to start, just start with burden, which is just another way to say how people experience waste.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to find some stuff that's really worth going after.
And I think everybody can connect to that quickly.
Yeah.
When you say waste, or what do you waste time on, or what do you think you shouldn't be doing, but somebody keeps telling you to do, right? Everybody can connect on that.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great, Mike. I appreciate you sharing your insights, your approach, your thought process on leading your factory. Keep up the great work and continue on your journey.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate the opportunity.